right? Oh, started now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's anapomorphy. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah.
Suppose from A to E you have taken, if there is more than like E, F, G,
More species, you mean?
yes.
Yeah.
If we missed that, so it kind of misguides, right?
Oh, yeah. You should, when it comes to ancestral character reconstruction, it is good to have as many species as possible. So this reconstruction might change depending on what is the state in the sister species here. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there is like ancestor character is 1, and after that it will be 0. That means like
Lost.
they have lost. Yeah.
Yeah, loss of character. That can also happen. Here we are assuming for all these anapomorphies, we are assuming that the ancestors didn't have the character. But you are absolutely right. It can also happen the other way around. For example, here we really don't know what was the. Here one can use simple logic that hey, that's 0, that is 0. So most probably that was also 0, right? And it was gained here. But here it becomes very difficult. Okay, these two are 0, so that's 0. All of them is 1, so that is 1. So 1 and 0, what was that? Right? It could be 1. And then a loss here. So you're absolutely right. What was this state? To actually know that, we'll have to get more species. But anyway, right now let's not worry about that. So let's just assume that in case of the examples we are looking at, anapomorphies, these are derived characters, so the ancestral state was absence of that character. Okay. Now, given this tree, if you look at character number 5, it is present in B, C, D, and E, and is absent in A. Right? So the most logical sort of conclusion one would make is that character was present in the common ancestor and it was lost on the lineage leading to A. Does that make sense? Right? One can say that maybe the character was absent here, then you would have to invoke multiple gain of that character. Right? So this is basically the principle of parsimony, where you're trying to come up with a solution that needs minimum number of steps. Okay? Alright, so that is character number 5. Character number 6 is only present in D, is absent in all the other taxa. Right? Absent here. So what I have shown here is a possible scenario where the character was absent in the common ancestor, was gained on the lineage leading to D and E. So it was present in the common ancestor. And then it was lost again on the lineage leading to E. So the character state in E reverted back to the ancestral state. Okay? And that's why we call it reversal. But this is very similar to something we have already discussed. Which one? Which example? This one? Only one taxa. Oh no, sorry. We didn't discuss this yet. Okay. It's actually similar to unique character also. We'll discuss unique character in a minute. Okay, so this is reversal. 6. Character number 8 is present only in A but absent in all the other species. Okay, so the logical sort of parsimonious reconstruction would be all these internal nodes are 0 and this character was acquired on the lineage leading to A. Now these two are quite very similar, right? Because even here only one taxa has a character, just like here. So this could also be a unique character, right? That was acquired here. Does that make sense? But I have shown it like so just to illustrate the point that you can also have reversals in the character state. So here there are two states for this character. One state is absence of the character, one state is presence of the character. So 0 and 1, right? Okay, and the last example here is convergence. D and A share a character, but they are not related to each other, right? So this is independent acquisition of the same character in unrelated species, and we call it convergence. Okay, so we have now discussed at least 5 different categories of characters, right? Synapomorphies, unique characters, you can have a loss of character, you can have reversal, and you have convergence. Right? So the cladists argue that these characters here can give you a completely messed up tree. They should not be used. Particularly this convergence. These two are called homoplasies. Right? These kinds of changes are called homoplasies. What a homoplasie does is it makes unrelated species look similar. But we want homologies, similarity because of common ancestry, not similarity because of convergence, not similarity because of reversal. Right? So that's the argument that cladists make, that you should not be using all the characters. Okay, if you look at these characters, what is the tree that you will get? If you use character 5, and if you didn't have the tree, what kind of a tree would you draw? I'm sorry? A would be separate. Right? A would be, do we want to do this switching and all that? No, forget it. So basically, right? Because this is 0, all of this is 1, 1, 1. So you look like, hey, this makes sense, right? If we had used this character, then you would get the same tree, right? If we had used this character, what the reversal has done is it has made E look more like
B, ABC.
right? So D would now separate out and E will join them. This here will put these two taxa together, right? So it's highly problematic, some of these characters. But we know all that because we have the tree. Now the question is, how do we get the tree? Right? So again, we use the principle of parsimony. And the principle of parsimony is basically the principle of endorsing the simplest solution as being the most likely solution. I believe the term comes from from the courts where when the judge when the defendants like come up with arguments against or for some in some case, judge looks at the simplest way to resolve the case, and that is most likely, and that's most parsimonious. So when we are saying parsimonious, we are trying to use the simplest explanation, right? And in phylogenetics, what we do is we count up the number of changes to figure out the most parsimonious solution, the most parsimonious tree. Okay? How are we doing that? If you look at this tree that we have already talked about, and what we do is we take all these changes, right, and put it on one tree. That's all I've done here. Okay? And if you count up all these changes, that gives you the tree length. It gives you the number of changes needed to explain this character matrix. Okay? So every time a character emerges in a tree, it's one change, and every time there's a loss of character, it's one change. Okay? So, if you just count up the number of changes here, remember there should be actually 2 bars here. This is for character 1 and 4, which is that. So character 1, 1 bar, character number 4 also 1 more bar, so 2 changes. Right? Similarly, that is character number 2. These 2, 7 is convergence here and here. 8 is unique character here. 3 here is it a synapomorphy? It's a synapomorphy, right? 6 is, we decided we'll call it reversal. So it evolved here and there was a loss here. And 5 is most likely a loss in A, along A. Okay? So this character was present in the common ancestor of all the species and it was lost on the lineage leading to A. Okay, now if we count up all these changes, what do you get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 changes. So this tree needs 11 changes to explain this character matrix. Does that make sense? Now, is this tree similar to our UPGMA tree? There is one difference. What is it?
A, B, C.
Here, A is sister to BC, whereas in this tree, C is sister to AB. So there is a difference, right? Now let us take the UPGMA tree and go through the same process and see how many changes. So here's our UPGMA tree. Okay, so 1 and 4 does not change because we still have ABC, ABC, ABC. This also won't change because DE was a cluster in both the trees. This is where the action comes in, right? If you count up the number of changes here, how many do you get? 12. So the other tree is more parsimonious. One extra step has been introduced here. Where is it?
The appearing of 2 for B.
Huh?
The appearing of 2 for B or A.
Yes. This is where that extra step has come. Remember, A, B are together here.
Yeah.
So 2 is a synapomorphy. But here, they are not together, right? But they share a character. So it's probably independent acquisition of the same character given this tree. So that's where one extra step has come. So what you do is you flip it and then you get a better tree and you say, hey, that's a more parsimonious tree. Okay? So that is how principle of parsimony works. You take a tree a priori and you map the characters onto the tree. You calculate the tree length, right? And then you change the tree topology. You go through this process again and then you pick the tree that needs the least number of changes. And that is the most parsimonious tree. Okay? So between these two trees, this tree needs less number of changes by the principle of parsimony. So we pick this tree. Okay? Now, characters that are consistent with the most parsimonious tree then becomes your synapomorphs. Does that make sense? Yeah? So, we have picked this tree. The characters 1 through 4 are consistent with this tree. Those are your synapomorphs. The rest of the characters, some of them, so these are Shea-Dirac characters or homologies, whereas these are homoplasies, reversal, and convergence. Remember, when you have convergence, it is supporting the wrong tree. When you have reversal, then this taxa is looking more like these, right? This situation here. And these are called homoplasies.
How does the software differs between homoplasy and how does it make a difference?
No. It basically, once it picks the most parsimonious tree, characters that are consistent with that tree become your synapomorphies, your evolutionary homologies. And all the other characters are now homoplasies or cases of unique character or character loss. These are not informative at all.
So from basically what I have understood, it will make all number of trees and from which is maximum with the least number of characters, whichever tree explains it, that is the best tree which we get.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that
Not least number of characters. So there are multiple trees possible, right? What the program is doing is it is picking the tree that agrees with most of the characters, right? And how does it do that? It picks the tree that needs the least number of changes, right? And the characters that do not agree with the tree then become your homoplasies, or they are characters that are lost in just one lineage, or characters that are unique to just one lineage. Those are not informative at all. And what do I mean by not informative at all? What happens is when you have a unique character, wherever you put it on the tree, wherever you put that taxa on the tree, the number of changes does not make a dent. So you can't really pick. So unique change. This tree needs one change over here, right? If you change the topology, still needs one change. These are unique changes, right? Again, if you change the topology, is there one more topology possible? A.
BC as a
Third possibility is this. Yeah. Again, one change, right? So these unique changes are uninformative. You can't pick among these three trees which is the shortest. Character loss and unique changes are uninformative, you know. Whereas these changes can actually support the wrong tree, right? So you want to use characters that have been inherited from immediate common ancestor, not characters that have convergently evolved in unrelated individuals or species. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. So the output of a cladistic analysis is called a cladogram. Okay, and cladists argue that this is true phylogeny because this phylogeny is based on synapomorphies, evolutionary homologies. Whereas in case of UPGMA, the phonetic approach, you're taking all the characters, and some of these characters are actually supporting the wrong tree, and they should not be used, right? And phenogram, which is an output of a UPGMA tree, is a good indicator of evolutionary relationships, but is not a evolutionary tree, not a phylogeny. At least that's what the cladists would argue. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, now please come. Okay. All right. So let me just quickly finish this section and then we'll take a break. All right. So here is a character matrix. Which is the most parsimonious tree? What have I done here? Yeah, there are multiple topologies, but what is this site 1, site 2, site 3? For each character, I have built a tree. Right? For character 1, that's the tree. Character 2, this is the tree. Character 3, this is the tree. Character 4, this is the tree. Right? Now, which is the right tree? Which is the most parsimonious tree? And why? Anyone? Huh? Site? Site? So you're saying this is the most parsimonious tree? Anyone?
Site 1.
This one?
Because it uses maximum characters and minimum.
Yeah, so you mean this tree, right? Because character 3 also, same tree, right? So this particular topology is supported by more number of characters. Whereas this topology is supported by just one character, this topology is also supported by just one character. So this topology is the most parsimonious, right? So that's a cladogram. Now what you can do is map your characters onto the phylogeny just like the way we have done here. Okay, so if you look at this character number 1, where would you put it? Here, it's a synapomorphy that unites these two species. Character number 2, it's a unique character. on the lineage leading to A. Character number 3, synapomorphy, that unites C and D. Character number 4, what is this? Huh? Convergence, yes, convergence. Independent acquisition of the same character in unrelated species, and this is a problematic character, it's a homoplasy. If you have lot of homoplases in your data set, the program does not know what's the right tree. It will pick that as the most parsimonious tree. Right? Does that make sense? So the cladists always argue that just don't take all the characters because some of them are homoplasies. We should be looking at only evolutionary homologies. Right? Okay, so that's a cladogram. Now, if you scale the branches according to number of change, you get phylogram. Right? So there are 2 changes here, there's 1 change here, there's 1 change here, there's 1 change here. 0 change here, 0 change here, right? And if I say that, okay, a branch length of that extent is 1 change, then you can scale your branches according to number of changes. And that gives you a phylogram. Does that make sense? Yeah? Whereas cladogram, the branch lengths don't mean anything. Okay? All right, so yeah, the same tree, the same data set, the tree would look like this in case of UPGMA. And look at that, all.
In UPGMA and cladogram, we are getting the same.
Here we are getting the same, yes. Sometimes you do get the same topology, but often you don't. Yeah. And remember, UPGMA, all the species are at the same distance from the root. Whereas here, look at D, look at C, all of them are at different distances from the root. So the rate of morphological evolution is different along different lineages. Right? Okay, so any questions? We'll stop now.
That means from UPGMA, it's difficult to get a proper conclusion whether, like, how long the A and B are.
In terms of number of changes, yes. If there are more number of changes along a particular lineage, UPGMA is not going to pick that.
But by UPGMA, we can get the correct system, right?
No. UPGMA is highly problematic because it assumes rate homogeneity. It can actually give you an erroneous tree. For a small data set, often it's okay. It does not give the wrong tree. But a large data set where there is a lot of rate variation, UPGMA will invariably give you the wrong tree.
And UPGMA will only use the calculated difference, right? The one we calculated of the.
Yeah. From here, I've calculated the distance between different species and then use this to derive UPGMA. Right? The other thing is, this method is much more superior, parsimony or cladistic approach, because you're treating each character independently. Right? You are what's the word I'm looking for? You're sort of analyzing each character independently, not analyzing, I'm not getting the right term here, but
Is
anyway.
it about sensitivity to the change because of larger character size?
I'm sorry?
Sensitivity to the change. If we have multiple characters and we are treating every character individually, we have more sensitive
Yes,
in
yes.
terms of identifying changes.
True, absolutely. Whereas what UPGMA is doing is taking all these characters and turning it into a number. Right? But here we are looking at each and every character separately, mapping it onto the tree and then coming up with the most parsimonious tree. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
So when you give it to the software, so the software is doing all the things, right?
Yeah.
So you told that we shouldn't be using the converging character, convergence, the characters that show convergence.
Yeah, so Yeah, if you have reason to believe a priori that some of the data set has lots of homoplasy, then one should not use it. For example, you know that some genes are under positive selection, and we'll talk about that later. You know, along certain lineages, and they might have evolved convergently with certain unrelated species. So if you have reason to believe that that's the situation, such data sets should not be used.
Otherwise, we give all the things.
Otherwise, you give, you use any gene is fine, but a gene under positive selection is problematic. Right? But even any other gene, you'll still have some homoplasies. You will have some homoplasies like this. But usually what happens is the homologies outnumber the homoplasies. So it's almost never a big problem, right? But genes that are under positive selection that have been, and rapidly evolving, that have been recruited for a new function. In fact, Karthik Sunaga's lab, a lot of work is going on along those lines. Such genes should not be used. So we'll discuss that later, okay? But otherwise, most genes, you know, it's not like the program knows which are homoplasies and all that. It's just taking all the characters, building a tree. Okay, it's just spitting out the most parsimonious tree, that's all. And then you can ask the program, now tell me which are the homoplasies and all that, right? It's not that a priori it knows which are the homoplasies, which are the synapomorphies, and I'm going to build tree only based on synapomorphies. No, that's not how the program is working. It's just building many trees, calculating the tree length, and just giving you the shortest tree. Okay? So actually we should practice this, then we'll give you a data set. We have that, no, Kunal?
There is the folders.
Yeah. In the afternoon, if you have time, you should by hand come up with the most parsimonious tree. You should definitely do this with parsimony and also UPGMA. Okay. All right. If there, yeah, quick point.
So is the UPGMA an older method, or people are still using it?
UPGMA is. It's been around for a while, but the idea of parsimony has also been around for quite some time. UPGMA is actually 1966.
58.
Yeah, or 58 or something like that. But the idea of parsimony, I think, has been there even earlier, because the whole cladistics as a school of systematics is older than the phonetic approach, right? But the use of parsimony in cladistics to come up with the most appropriate tree, that is something a little more recent, because what happens is to calculate this. So the tree length here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And if you change the phylogeny, the tree length goes up, right? But to do that calculation, you need a computer program, right? So by hand, you can do it for very small data sets. And there's another very important problem that comes up, and that is, how many trees do you want to evaluate? So we'll come to that later. Short answer is cladistics is older than phonetic approach, but the use of parsimony in cladistics is probably more recent. Yeah. Okay, let's break for tea. Oh.